Hey everyone, and welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we're diving into Tilray brands, TLRY, for those playing along at home. It's a company making waves and maybe a few ripples of concern in the ever-evolving world of cannabis.
Yeah, for sure.
Tilray's stock has had kind of a wild ride over the past year, down about 35% overall. But there's also some chatter about a potential comeback. So the big question is, should you be grabbing your board and paddling out? Or battening down the hatches?
It is the question, isn't it?
Let's break down the latest news and analysis.
Yep.
And see if we can't ride this wave to some investing insights.
Sounds good.
First up, let's check out Tilray's recent stock performance. It's been pretty volatile, to say the least, swinging between $1.22 and $1.81 just in the past few months. As of today, January 3rd, 2025, it's sitting around $1.47.
Yeah, I mean, that volatility is not exactly a surprise. When you consider the state of the cannabis market overall, you've got tons of regulatory hurdles and, some really fierce competition. It's a tough landscape for companies like Tilray, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely makes you wonder if those December doldrums played a part. I mean, the stock dropped about 26% that month. So maybe looking at some technical indicators might give us a clue about where things could be headed.
Could be.
Like, for example, we see Tilray is currently trading below both its 50-day and 200-day moving averages. Those are sitting at $1.53. and $1.78, respectively. Not really what you'd call a sign of an upward trend.
No, not really.
But there's also the RSI, the Relative Strength Index, which currently sits at 39.39.
Ah, yes, the RSI. It can be a pretty interesting indicator. For those who maybe aren't as familiar, it basically measures the strength of recent price movements, relative to the stock's past performance. A reading below 30 usually suggests that a stock is oversold, which, could mean it's primed for a bit of a rebound.
So you're saying it's like a stretched rubber band?
Yeah.
Eventually it's got to snap back.
Exactly. And, if we look back at Tilray's history, we see a similar RSI dip back in June of 2024. And that dip, was followed by a pretty significant price jump.
Interesting. So history might be rhyming in this case.
Maybe. Of course, past performance doesn't guarantee future results or anything like that, but it does at least suggest this current RSI dip might be a sign that Tilray is becoming a more attractive buy for some investors.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the RSI is hinting at a possible bounce back. But you did mention earlier that we need to look at the whole picture. So
Yeah.
what else are the charts telling us?
Well, you're right. It's always important to remember no single indicator tells the whole story. And, while that RSI might be flashing a buy signal for some, we also see this bearish shooting star candlestick pattern on the charts, which, suggests some continued downward pressure on the stock price.
Okay, so a shooting star, huh?
Yeah, essentially it indicates that there was a failed attempt by buyers to kind of push the price higher, and that led to a pretty sharp reversal.
Gotcha. So mixed signals on the technical side.
It does seem that way.
But on top of all that, there's some news that has investors on the edge of their seats.
Oh, what's that?
So Tilray's second quarter earnings report was originally scheduled for January 9th, 2025. But get this, it's been pushed back a day to January 10th.
A little bit of a delay. Interesting.
It is, isn't it?
So what's the reason?
Well, the reason for the delay is the National Day of Mourning for former President Jimmy Carter. U.S. stock markets will be closed on January 9th in observance.
Ah, okay. So no dramatic stock market reactions on that day.
Exactly. Although this little calendar quirk has definitely heightened the anticipation. Everyone's waiting to see how Tilray is navigating these current market conditions.
Right.
And if they're on track to meet those, pretty ambitious growth projections.
Right. Makes sense.
And speaking of those growth projections, this is where things get kind of interesting.
How so?
Well, despite all the headwinds in the cannabis market, analysts are projecting some pretty impressive revenue growth for Tilray.
Okay, I'm listening.
Over 22% year over year for the upcoming quarter.
Wow, that is impressive, especially given the current market.
Right. So how's that even possible with everything going on?
Well, Tilray has been busy. They've been launching new products, especially in the cannabis beverage sector.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think brands like XMG and Malo with all sorts of interesting THC and CBG combinations.
Oh, wow. Sounds like they're really diversifying.
Yeah, and what's particularly intriguing is the timing. These new product launches, they're strategically aligned with the holiday season.
Smart move. Capitalize on those prime buying periods.
Exactly, and that could really provide a significant boost to Tilray's sales going forward.
Makes a lot of sense. But let's get down to brass tacks here. What does all this mean for our listeners, the potential investors out there? Should they be buying, selling, or holding Tilray stock?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, there's no crystal ball to give us a definitive answer.
Right.
Investing always comes with a certain level of risk, and Tilray is certainly no exception. But there are some key factors I think we should consider.
All right, lay it on us.
Okay, so first off, there's the long-term growth potential. IF Tilray can successfully capitalize on that projected revenue growth and, demonstrate some consistent profitability. Then it could be a solid investment for those with a longer time horizon.
Big IF, though, right?
Oh, for sure. It is a big IF. They need to execute their strategy effectively.
They can't just talk the talk. They got to walk the walk.
Exactly. They need to deliver.
So what else should investors be thinking about?
Well, I think it's crucial to keep an eye on the overall dynamics of the cannabis market. It's still a relatively young industry with a lot of volatility and regulatory uncertainty. Things like positive changes in regulations, like, say, federal legalization in the U.S., for example. That could be a real game changer for companies like Tilray. But that's still a big unknown.
So a lot of what ifs in this sector, it seems.
There are.
So keeping an eye on the regulatory landscape is key.
Absolutely.
Anything else to add to the watch list?
Definitely. Pay attention to what the analysts are saying. Look for any upgrades in their ratings or earnings estimates for Tilray. Those are usually pretty good indicators of shifting sentiment. Right now, for example, Zacks Investment Research has a hold rating on the stock.
Hold, so basically wait and see.
Pretty much, yeah. It basically means things could go either way at this point. And the January 10th earnings report, well, that's likely going to be the next big catalyst for the stock. So, definitely one to watch.
So it sounds like Tilray's a bit of a mixed bag right now.
It does, doesn't it?
There are some challenges.
For sure.
But there's also some potential upside.
Potentially, yes.
We've covered a lot of ground already on Investing Talk podcast today, from recent stock performance and technical indicators to earnings expectations and market trends.
It's been a good overview.
It has. But now it's your turn to weigh in. What are your thoughts on Tilray Brands, TLRY? Are you bullish or bearish? Head down to the comments and let us know what you think. And hey, while you're down there, hit that subscribe button and share this episode with your fellow investing enthusiasts. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the world of finance. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone. It really is, you can't just look at a stock in isolation. You have to consider the overall market trends and how they might be influencing Tilray.
Right, exactly. And 2024 was pretty remarkable, wasn't it?
Right.
For the stock market. The major indexes, like the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, saw some impressive gains. Nasdaq surged by 29%. And the S&P wasn't far behind at 23%. It felt like this wave of optimism, especially with all the excitement around AI.
Yeah, there was a lot of buzz about AI and how it was going to, transform industries. And investors were eager to get a piece of the pie. Plus, the economic picture seemed to be improving, which, just fueled the market's momentum even more.
But like we've all learned, the market can be fickle, right? These first few days of 2025 haven't been as kind. S&P 500 dipped 0.4% on January 2nd. And it feels like that downward trend is kind of continuing from what we saw at the end of last year.
Yeah, it does seem like the market's taking a breather after such a strong run in 2024. Investors are always trying to predict the future, and there's a bit of uncertainty in the air right now. Some analysts are predicting that economic growth might slow down a bit in 2025, and that's making investors a little cautious. So they might be, taking some profits off the table just to be safe.
So it's like, what did they say? Buy the rumor, sell the news. The market surged on the anticipation of all this growth. And now it's adjusting to the possibility that things might slow down.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And, this market volatility definitely has implications for companies like Tilray. They're not operating in a vacuum or anything. Yeah. Their stock is going to be influenced by those broader trends.
For sure. And, when we look at their recent performance, it's clear that, they have been impacted by these fluctuations. Remember, we were talking about the stock bouncing between $1.22 and $1.81. Well, in late December, it closed at $1.28. That's a pretty significant drop, especially when you consider how much the market as a whole gained last year.
It is a notable drop, and it reflects some of those challenges that Tilray and the entire cannabis industry really are facing. We already talked about the regulatory hurdles and the intense competition, and those factors are definitely weighing on investor sentiment.
Okay, so Tilray stock is down, and the market's looking a little shaky. It makes you wonder if, you know, this upcoming earnings report
Yeah,
could be the thing that turns things around for them.
it could be. Yeah.
What are analysts saying? Are they expecting Tilray to, come out swinging with some impressive numbers?
Well, the general consensus is that Tilray is expected to report an EPS, earnings per share, of -5 cents for the quarter, which, might not sound great on the surface, but it's actually an improvement from the same quarter last year, so at least they're moving in the right direction.
Okay, yeah, so a smaller loss is better than a bigger loss. I got you. But what about revenue? Are they expected to, show some growth there?
That's where things get a bit more interesting. Analysts are projecting Tilray will bring in revenue of $216.47 million for this quarter, and that would represent a year-over-year increase of 22.33%.
Wow, that's pretty significant.
It is. It is. So despite all the challenges, they're still expected to grow their business at a decent pace.
So some potential good news on the revenue front. It really makes you want to and understand what's driving that growth.
Yeah.
What's the overall sentiment among analysts right now? I mean, are they bullish on Tilray? Bearish? Somewhere in between?
Well, as we said before, Zacks Investment Research currently has a hold rating on Tilray. It's essentially a neutral stance, just reflecting that uncertainty surrounding the company and the whole cannabis sector, really. It's a classic wait-and-see situation.
So Tilray's at a bit of a crossroads here. They're facing some headwinds, but they're also showing signs of potential growth. It seems like this upcoming earnings report could be a real turning point for them and for investors trying to decide, whether to buy in or stay on the sidelines.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Investing is all about weighing the risks and rewards, analyzing the data, and making informed decisions based on the best information available. And with Tilray, there's definitely a lot to consider.
Well said. Now I'm curious to hear more about Tilray's position in the market. What are their strengths, weaknesses? How are they navigating this ever-changing industry? So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Tilray's position in the broader cannabis market. What are their strengths? What are some of their weaknesses? And how are they navigating this dynamic, sometimes unpredictable industry?
Well, I think one of Tilray's most notable strengths is their global reach. They have a presence in multiple countries, which, gives them access to a wider customer base. And that kind of diversification can help buffer them against some of the volatility that comes with, being overly reliant on any single market, especially one as unpredictable as the U.S. cannabis market.
Yeah, that makes sense. Spread the risk, right?
Yeah.
But I imagine operating in so many different countries also comes with its own challenges, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Each country has its own set of, regulations, cultural nuances, consumer preferences. It's definitely a very complex operation to manage. And, Tilray has faced some criticism for not always being as efficient or profitable as some of its competitors.
So there's a trade-off there. Global reach offers potential for growth, but it also requires a skillful hand at managing a very complex international operation.
Exactly.
But, let's not forget, Tilray is also making some strategic moves within the U.S. market, particularly with those new product launches. In the cannabis beverage sector, we were talking about XMG and Mala earlier. So what's the thinking behind this focus on beverages? Seems like a pretty competitive space.
Well, it's really all about tapping into evolving consumer trends and trying to broaden the appeal of cannabis products. Beverages offer a more discreet and some might say, socially acceptable way to consume cannabis, which could attract a wider audience, including those who might be hesitant to try smoking or vaping.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Having a cannabis-infused drink at a social gathering is probably perceived a little differently than, smoking a joint.
Right, exactly. And Tilray seems to be, betting that these new beverages will resonate with consumers, particularly during peak social occasions, like we see around the holidays, for example.
It seems like they're really trying to position themselves as a leader in this emerging market. But with so many other companies vying for that top spot, how do they plan to stand out from the crowd?
Well, I think Tilray is really focusing on innovation, creating these unique products, experimenting with different cannabinoid combinations, like THC and CBG, to develop these really interesting flavors and effects that cater to a wider range of tastes.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like what we've seen happen with like the craft beer industry.
Yeah.
Consumers are always looking for something new and exciting. Maybe Tilray is hoping to capture that same spirit of exploration and discovery within the cannabis beverage market.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. And, if they can successfully position their beverages as these premium, high quality products, they might be able to, command a higher price point, which would be a big win for their profitability. It's a bold strategy, but, one that could pay off if they can execute it well.
Okay, so Tilray is playing the long game here, focusing on global expansion, product innovation, and really carving out this unique space in the market. But let's bring it back to the individual investor for a second. What should they be watching for in this upcoming earnings report? What are the key takeaways that could indicate, whether Tilray is truly on the right track?
Well, I think, investors are going to be looking at Tilray's revenue growth. Did they meet or exceed those projected numbers that we talked about earlier? And, if so, what were the primary drivers of that growth? Did those new beverage launches have a significant impact? And they'll also be looking closely at, Tilray's profitability. Are they making progress towards becoming a consistently profitable company? Or, are their expenses still outpacing their revenue growth? And, that's a really critical factor for long-term sustainability.
Right. It's not just about growing. It's about, smart growth, right?
Exactly.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Anything else investors should keep an eye out for?
I'd say pay close attention to what Tilray's management team says during the earnings call. What's their outlook for the future? Do they sound confident in their strategy? And how are they planning to navigate those challenges and opportunities that lie ahead? Those insights can be just as valuable as the raw numbers themselves.
So they'll look beyond the numbers and try to understand the story.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today on Investing Talk podcast, exploring Tilray Brands, TLRY. We talked about their recent stock performance, the upcoming earnings report, overall market trends, and their strategy, in the cannabis market. Now, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Tilray? Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Head over to the comments section and let us know. And hey, while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and share this episode with your fellow investors. We'll be back soon with more insights into the world of finance. Thanks for listening.